Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here. This is your dailysheeple.com daily news brief. And hey, I guess there's some people that are pretty sore about President Trump. And MoveOn.org, guess what? George Soros is one of them. I know everybody's surprised. George Soros now has his knickers in a twist. And according to Breitbart.com, America is on edge because MoveOn.org has organized a bunch of these anti-Trump protests around the country. And, of course, we've seen them now last night, today. I know in Oakland and in Cleveland, they've gotten violent. Of course they've gotten violent. Look, we said before the election that this was going to happen, that either way, whether it was going to be Clinton that won, whether it was Trump that won, you're going to have some people that were upset. Now, the problem is MoveOn.org and other Soros-funded nonprofits are going out of their way to stir the pot. You know, people probably wouldn't be out there en masse if it wasn't for George Soros. But according to Breitbart, it says MoveOn.org released the following press release Wednesday afternoon. It says, America to come together in hundreds of peaceful gatherings of solidarity, resistance, and resolve following election results. It says hundreds of Americans, dozens of organizations, to gather peacefully outside the White House and in cities and towns nationwide to take a continued stance against racism, Islamophobia, and xenophobia. Because that's what happened, right? That's what America said. That's what it was all about. Look, there's no doubt that these things exist, but it's very simple for them to use propaganda tactics to tie them together, you know, as Trump-related. But we'll get into that. It says the gatherings organized by MoveOn.org and its allies will affirm a continued rejection of Donald Trump's bigotry, xenophobia, Islamophobia, and demonstrate our resolve to fight together for the America we still believe is possible. By the way, Hillary Clinton, same thing. Only she hated the poor people. She didn't like being around any of us. She didn't. What makes her different than Donald Trump? There isn't much. They're both humans. They're both millionaires. They both take advantage of things. The only difference is, at least as far as I can tell, is that Donald Trump is more, I don't know, he doesn't hide it. You know, where she hides all of her stuff. I mean, the satanic rituals and talking to Eleanor Roosevelt and stuff like that. I don't think Donald Trump would really be too worried about that kind of stuff. He doesn't seem to be that kind of guy. So we got that going on, right? And again, you're going to see more and more of these protests as time goes on until the inauguration. Heck, maybe even afterwards. God only knows what's going to happen. Now, the New York Post is, this is kind of funny, says it's got a lot harder to book a shrink in New York City after Trump's win. I guess people are pretty distraught over this. And I don't know if anybody saw this on the, on election night. But if you got to look at Hillary's, what was supposed to be a party, but ended up not being one, boy, there were some pretty upset people with regards to her loss. And so New York Post is reporting, it says President-elect Donald Trump is driving New Yorkers crazy. Anxiety is so high in the Big Apple following Trump's astonishing presidential win that patients are rushing to their therapist to book emergency therapy sessions. I mean, can you imagine that? Dr. Chloe Carmichael, a clinical psychologist and stress management expert based in Manhattan, said she was already swamped at 7 a.m. Wednesday, helping her clients navigate their emotions surrounding the election results. I mean, really? It's that bad? I mean, how does it affect people on that level? I just don't understand it. And it's something, she said it was something that came up immediately, and it wasn't just Carmichael's existing patients who needed something to talk about, about the 2016 race. It was all over the place. It's like there was a Midtown meltdown. It's unbelievable. Dr. Bruce Berman, said one of his gay patients needed to come in immediately. He said he was worried about what it was gonna mean to him and other gay people. I don't think he saw Donald Trump holding the LGBT flag and all that kind of stuff, saying, hey, you know what? I love you guys too. But, The problem is so many people buy into the mainstream media and their propaganda machine that they don't even know the truth. You know, and I'm like I said, I don't support Trump. I don't support Clinton. I had no pony in this race. But I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Donald Trump was not going out and railing against gay people. And that's just all propaganda. That's what it is. Even New York University distributed a memo to its students that offered various counseling and mental health hotlines for those feeling scared, hopeless, or just in need of someone to talk to. Perhaps you need a safe space. Well, jeez. It says reaching out is not shameful. If this week has been too much to handle, these resources are free and confidential. I mean, is this what we've come to in America? Are we this sissified, this wussified, that the outcome of a presidential election is making people call their therapist en masse? I mean, they're like overwhelming the crisis hotlines. Really? I mean, if you're that PO'd, why don't you get active? Why don't you do something about it? You know? Hell, at least those people that George Soros is getting to come out, at least they're out there doing something, albeit misguided. It's just unbelievable. I just have to call my therapist. What am I supposed to do? I mean, what? Really? Unbelievable. It's crazy. Activist Post is writing about this too. I mean, because this election really has thrown people for a loop in so many different ways, just by the sheer circus, the size and scope of the circus that it was. You know, and also the fact that here you have the Clinton crime syndicate being openly exposed for what it is on so many levels, even on the levels of, you know, the demonism, the Satanism, all of that stuff. And still, you know, people are so distraught that Hillary didn't get in. Like, they openly wanted it. I couldn't believe it. You know, how much more evidence do you need that the establishment isn't about you or isn't about me? It's about them. Since when do the Clintons have your best interest at heart? Because this is what they do, folks. They get everybody, basically everybody gets on their pedestal, and everybody knows what's best for everybody else. And they get this mindset into the people instead of respecting each other and loving each other and coming together as one people, one nation. You know what we get? We get a bunch of division. We get a bunch of divisiveness. We get just, it just becomes totally and completely caustic. The whole situation. Why? Why? Why do we let it get to that point? Why are we so worried about black, white, educated, uneducated, rich, poor, Christian, Jew? It doesn't matter. You know, you like the Red Sox, you like the Yankees. I mean, people go to fisticuffs over sports teams. We've just become so commercialized. It's unbelievable. And so programmed. Most people are drones. Hell, kids today don't even look up when they walk because their heads are buried in their smartphones. This is the world that we live in. And this is what we have to break out of. Like I said last night, I'm all for technology, but good grief. Brandon Tuberville at the Activist Post writes, Trump's president now, so now what do we do? He says, November 9th, Americans woke up to the announcement that they had narrowly avoided the apparent worst-case scenario, i.e. Hillary Clinton. Most researchers and activists of goodwill were happy, if not outright ecstatic, that the Wicked Witch of the West was finally gone, hopefully for good. Others simply acknowledged that a change in power would take place in January 2017, but argue that there would be no discernible difference between Trump or Obama just as there was no difference between Bush and Obama. But while we're taking some temporary relief and knowing that we avoided the absolute worst-case scenario, it's time to ask, what now? You know, we're faced with Donald Trump as a president. So what do? Join the Trump team and become a cult follower? Support him until he does something terrible or commits a series of terrible decisions? Or start attacking him immediately, like Soros? Certainly complacency should not be an option, which, of course, you can see is starting to set in. People are starting to get apathetic because, Trump made it. Ooh, I can go sit on my parka lounger and watch the NFL again. Yay. And simply sitting back because of the outcome was not as bad as it could have been. Not good. Not good at all. First, it's imperative that activists and people of goodwill, they need to recognize that the Trump victory is not necessarily a victory for the American people. A Hillary defeat, although positive, does not equal a win for America, at least not in those simplistic terms. But it is time, Brandon says, for organization and for action. And he's right. He says activists and activist organizations and all people of goodwill must immediately begin to prepare themselves for a new phase in a battle that they have been in and fighting for all along. And that's right. So see, now the tactics are going to have to change. The battlefield, the terrain has changed. You know, we have to continue to fight because you have to understand, again, Trump did not get a $9 billion fortune by telling Wall Street to go screw themselves. That's not how it works. He's got Goldman Sachs on his team, and he's got other Wall Street insiders on his team. Why? Because in some way, shape, or form, you're going to have to make contact and liaise with Wall Street. But his bubbas, remember, he's a billionaire. He's going to have other billionaire bubbas out there. I'm sure some of them are like Monsanto. You know, do you think a Donald Trump is going to end the drug war? Do you? I don't think so. He's openly come out in favor of a drug war and a continued drug war. You know, even though states all across the country now are legalizing marijuana and seeing the benefits of this anti-prohibition stance, because we've seen prohibition doesn't work. It doesn't benefit anybody. All it does is oppress minorities, feed the prison industrial complex. Big pharma benefits. You don't benefit. His bubbas on Wall Street benefit. And he's not going to piss them off. Right? How about, vaccinations? I'll bet you he's all for mandatory vaccinations. Of course he is. GMOs, of course. I really don't see him going all in on organic food. These are things that we have to keep fighting for. Can't let the guard down. And unfortunately, when we have a situation like this, where a guy like Trump gets in, or somebody that the public rallies around simply because he says, well, I'm for the Constitution. Well, if you are, then how come you said you want to execute Snowden extrajudicially, and just the heck with due process, right? Just take him out. He's a traitor. The hell with innocent until proven guilty. The hell with the fact that he exposed extreme rights violations. I mean, this is the thing, folks, We have to come to grips with the fact that, yes, he's different. No, he's not the Clintons. There may be some benefits to the Trumps. He is a lesser of two evils. But at the end of the day, my friends, there's still some evil in there. Something to pay attention to. And our own Melissa Dykes wrote a great piece today at the Daily Sheeple saying he won because the elites want him there and that the global economy is eventually here going to collapse. Very interesting. And Alt Market predicted Trump's win months in advance. Now listen to this. She says, while many of us in the alternative media, and especially those researchers of Clinton crimes, are breathing a big fat sigh of relief that anybody but Hillary is headed to the White House in 2017. Brandon Smith, one of my favorite writers in alternative media, by the way, of altmarket.com, is warning us not to get too comfortable. And with all the history on his side, we should listen to him. She says, despite what looks like a rigged, fraudulent Hillary win orchestrated from the top down, with the entire establishment machine behind her, Trump won the election in an election year that would have otherwise seen record low voter turnout. The specter of Hillary that led to Trump and his victory has now given people a reason to believe their vote actually matters again. An extra boon to further re-legitimize the corrupt system running the country. Think about that. Trump won. Oh, those electronic voting machines, they must not have been that corrupt after all. You see the powers that shouldn't be in the corner. She says, first it should be noted that Smith accurately predicted that Brexit would pass. Even when the majority of the alt media was reporting that there was no possible way they could. You know, was it a victory for the people? No, of course it wasn't. It was predetermined well in advance. Then he accurately predicted a Trump win. But not because voting actually matters. This is what he wrote. He said, U.S. elections are indeed controlled and have been for decades, primarily through the false left-right paradigm. However, as I've been pointing out since I correctly predicted the success of the Brexit referendum, I don't think the Clintons are the choice of the elites. He says this, to be clear, my position is that Trump is slated to take the White House and that it's by design. He says, this has been my position since before Trump won the Republican primaries. And it was my position when the election cycle began. And it's never changed, nor have my views or the reasons for the outcome ever changed. Smith said, regardless of whether or not Trump is a legitimate anti-establishment candidate, his win means that the global economic collapse the system has been holding on to will finally come to pass as planned under Trump's watch. He says even if a legitimate anti-establishment conservative is Trump, right? Even if that's the case, well-intentioned, anti-establishment, he's conservative, his entry into the Oval Office will seal the deal for the economic collapse and will serve the globalists well. The international banks need only pull the plug on any remaining life support to the existing market and allow it to fully implode, all while blaming Trump and his conservative supporters. So he'll be the perfect scapegoat for something the alternative media has been known to be coming now for a very long time. Now, Smith spelled it out. He says, the bottom line is this. He says, Trump is on the way to the White House because the elites want him there. Now, many liberty proponents currently in a state of elation will either ignore or dismiss the primary reason why I was able to predict the Brexit and Trump win. These will probably be some of the same people that were arguing with me only weeks ago that the elites would never allow Trump in office. So let me clarify, he says. He says, Trump may or may not be aware that he and his conservative followers have been positioned into a trap. We will have to wait and see how he behaves in office, and he will be in office, despite the claims of some that the elites will try to stop him before January. He says, my primary point is that it doesn't matter. The elites will initiate a final collapse of the global economy under Trump's watch, and this will probably escalate over the course of the next 6 months, and then they'll blame him and the conservatives in general, and this is going to happen, he says. The elites play the long game, and so we have to. And there you have it. Mel says, it's not much of a secret that the economy is being artificially propped up, that the Fed's QE stimulus programs are no longer working. I mean, we know it can't remain this way forever, right? And even though everyone just feels so much relief that we've all been spared the nightmare of Hillary Clinton, climbing into yet another seat of even more power, we can't just assume that we're just going to go skip into magical, happy, fairy sprinkle land unscathed. Sure, the people have spoken, but it's only an illusion of power. Remember, it's an illusion of choice. It's what it is. Remember, I told you, the elites are going to win one way or another. Either Clinton gets in and they keep the globalist thing going. And they can string it out. Believe me, they've got many ways to kick the can down the road. Or they let Trump get in and they have their jubilee. They've set it up brilliantly. You know, this is the way it works. The powers that shouldn't be running this insanity circus always have had a plan. Now, after saying I told you so, Smith issued a final warning that we should not be so naive. He says, while millions of Americans are celebrating Trump's win, I will remain even more vigilant. The party's just getting started, folks. Don't get too comfortable. And sadly, she concludes, we can't ignore decades of New World Order history here just because we relived a psychopath like Hillary's lost, that she's lost the election. Smith is right. We'd all do well to listen to him and get prepared for what's coming. Because, folks, 2017 is going to be a bumpy ride. No doubt about it. Even President Assad's on the Trump train. He's like, woohoo! Syria's ready to cooperate with good old Donald. I mean, heck, I would cooperate with any non-interventionist president too. If he is, I'm not convinced. But we'll find out soon enough. Folks, this has been your Daily Sheeple, Daily News Update, Daily News Brief. Go to thedailysheeple.com, subscribe to our newsletter today, or subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I will see you all next week. Have a great night, everybody.